One of the reasons that a lot of leaders are struggling right now in the corona situation is because of that one thing that you say there are certain things that you cannot delegate. In today's video, I'm going to share with you as leaders what are those 6 things you cannot delegate, whatever happens. And if you have been delegating them, then you might want to step back and say, hey, I need to probably take this back in church so that you can what? Create that situation which we call the winning situation, where we say, hey, everything has fallen in place, and when you step on the motor in this company, everything else begins to work. Hi, my name is Coach Phil, and today I'm sharing with you 6 things that you cannot delegate as a leader whatsoever. Number 1, usually when I do a lot of coaching and training and leadership, especially leadership coaching, one of the things that you realize is you go in and you ask the leader, hey, do we know what we are doing here? And they're usually very crystal clear on what the vision is, the leaders, okay? However, usually the second tier people might not know what that is, and the third tier are very far away from what the real vision is. But that is okay, okay? But there's the next level up where we say, hey, okay, we know where we want to go, but you as a leader cannot delegate what we call the gap analysis. You cannot delegate that. You must be able to tell everybody in the organization to say, hey, this is the reality. This is where we are. This is where we need to be. This is the gap. And therefore, everybody from the bottom to the top know exactly where we are. That is why things like dashboards work very well. But they've got to be something that you as a leader has actually taken time and said, hey, the vision I want to take these people at is here. But guess what? Right now, this is where we are. And be super, super, super honest about it. Why? You go to leaders and they're saying, yeah, you know what? I think the people know, but you know, as long as I know where we are in the numbers on my laptop, hey, come on, you can't do that. And you can't delegate it, okay? Number 2, you as a leader, your greatest ability is to be able to inspire greatness in other people. That is what the leader does, to be able to inspire people to do things they might not have wanted to do. Now, why is number 2 important? Number 2 is what we call identify the obstacle. You're here. You want to make $20 million. You are making $500,000. What is the obstacle? Identifying that obstacle is your job as a leader. You cannot delegate that. You cannot ask somebody else to do it for you. You must be able to have that reality check to say, hey, this is the real obstacle where we are. That is where you have to grow up as a leader. That is where we have to go and become more strategic and say, hey, you know what? This is where we need to be. This is what the challenge is. This is the biggest obstacle. That is your job as a leader. You can't delegate that. You can't tell your team to go figure it out. No. You got to identify and say, guys, I think the obstacle is that our operations are not working well, or we are not performing as well as we should be, or that we are not, the sales are not where they're supposed to be. We need to be making 100K a month. We are making 90. When you identify that and then you say the obstacle is that our processes are not smooth enough, then you get the team to say, how do we make them smooth? But the bigger part is for you to identify what the obstacle is. Number 3, you as a leader, you cannot delegate allocation of resources. Why? This is your greatest time and this is your greatest tool in terms of leverage, in terms of knowing what should get resources, what shouldn't get resources, okay? There's a book, the Outliers, not the Outliers, the Uncommon Leader. I think, okay, I'll find it. But there are some guys who have been leaders and they're not in the newspapers. You never hear about them. They don't have Wall Street offices. You never hear that they are out there commenting about anything. But their greatest ability is to allocate resources where they get the company to get leverage to move at a higher speed. Most importantly, their number 1 role is to what? To increase shareholder what? That's it. So how do you do that? By knowing what resources do I have? How many people do I have? How much money do I have? What are the priorities? Where should I put what? Your greatest asset is to be able to say, hey, you know what? I am allocating the right resources to the right places, to the right people, so that I can leverage whatever our greatest assets are to go to the next level. That you cannot delegate. That you must do as a leader. Number 4, you cannot delegate this. And let me tell you, I was talking to, I've been doing during this COVID place. I've had a lot of calls from a lot of leaders, and they're beginning to, when there's a bit of a crisis, and people have some time on them, people get everybody's exposed. All right. Now, all of a sudden, leaders are becoming aware of the kind of people they have in the team. So I had one leader asking me the other day, you know what? I don't know how they employed these people. I said, where were you? All right. Why? Number 4 is about you are the person who cannot delegate attraction, retention, and growth of A players. Let me explain. You must be the person who creates what is the criteria of people who get in here. Then you create, if this is the criteria, this is the process they go through, this is how, and this is very crucial, this is how we onboard them. What does onboard mean? In other language, I think it is, what is the word? It is induction. How do we induct them into the company? What do we do to make sure that they get on board, they get everything they need to be able to what? To perform as the A players that were recruited in the first place. Now, your job is to ensure that you can't delegate that. You must be policing it like a hawk, like making sure that the top tier A people who come into your company, you know the criteria, you see them, you talk to them. Why? If you don't, then you allow in a little bit of chaff, a little bit of problem, then it becomes a problem, because I tell all leaders, you get it wrong at the gate, okay? If you get it wrong at the door and you bring in the wrong person, then you're stuck with the wrong person, okay? So it is your job. You can't delegate that. You got to say, you know what? Every person, at least in the last interview, I want to have a chat with them. And all the greatest leaders that do that, okay? Now, if you have 900 people, I don't expect you to do that. But then your next tier have got to be that the people who you employed and they know the criteria. So that if they bring in anybody who does not fit the criteria, then the gun is on them to say, hey, what happened there? All right? Next, number 5 is you cannot delegate creating an amazing structure for the organization. Now, if you're aware where we need to go, you found out the obstacle, then it is your job to go in and create the structure to support that. I'll tell you why. I've got some leaders, I've got a leader, he went into a bank, and the bank has had a certain structure for years. Now, the structure came from I think the leading bank or something, and then they have followed that for years, but it doesn't support the business right now. The business has changed. This bank is no longer a people's bank. They have to go out and look for the business. Now, with that in mind, they have to change the way they are set up. Now, that means what? That means that the leader has got to create a structure that supports where they need to go. However, there was so much resistance from the board and everybody else say, oh, you can't change it, because what? You are going to get rid of a lot of people who are actually obstacles to getting things done. Now, your job is to create that. I think it is famously noted that Steve Jobs had to break the structure at Apple at a certain stage, and he said the innovation team reports directly to him. Why? Apple is based on innovation. They are the world leaders in innovating when it comes to a phone. And he wanted to be in direct control of that. Why? His job is to make sure they're the best. How do you do that? By making sure that the structure supports the long-term vision that you want to correct. And then finally, you are the instigator. You can't delegate this. You can't delegate the ability to create an enabling culture. That you can't delegate. That you can't tell somebody else to help you out. No, you are the enabler, you are the instigator, you're the police person on what kind of culture you want to create in your organization, because that is what is going to make sure that the A players that come in have got a fertile ground for them to go out and shine. That the vision is based on things that have got a foundation of a great culture where you plant a seed and it thrives because the culture is right. You cannot delegate that. When we talk about culture, we're not going the woo stuff. No, the culture is the accountability in the company, the way we behave, the way we live, the way we do things, basically the way the value system of the company is. That is a culture. You can't delegate that. You must be the person who is what? Policing it, living it, and most importantly, making sure that they don't deviate. Why? If you get the culture wrong, then whatever you do at the top doesn't matter. So, there you are. You got 6 points right there of what you can't delegate as a leader. Now, go out there and ask yourself these questions. Number 1, which ones of these 6 have I delegated and what have the repercussions been? Number 2, what do I need to do immediately to rectify this situation? And finally, number 3, if I don't do this, what is bound to be the price that I'm going to continue to pay because I am delegating what I actually should be doing? Okay? So I want you to go out there, be the leader that you ought to be, and know that you have the audacity to create an amazing organization and live life on your terms. So until next time, be the best. Bye-bye.